Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we are reading The Unit by Ninni Holmqvist and translated by Marlaine Delargy, up to but not including Part 2, Chapter 14. And I'll go ahead and apologize right off the bat for not saying Part 2 last time, but luckily there's only one Chapter 14 in this book. But yeah, so we're halfway through one of our shorter books, and I feel like it's been easy to read so far. Very short chapters, which we know I like. How are you feeling at this halfway point, Taylor?
Yeah, it's been a quick read so far. That doesn't mean it's been sparse in detail, though. I feel like there's a lot of high-level things to talk about, a lot of ethics, a lot of morals.
Yeah, it's kind of a thought experiment book, right? Like, imagine this hypothetical situation. Here's a story from that. Very straightforward in that way. But yeah, like at the same time, a thinker because of the sort of moral question it's bringing up.
Yeah, certainly dystopian, but still very contained. I mean, some dystopian is like The Hunger Games. It's very expansive,
right,
et cetera, which is great. But this is like, I mean, it is just a unit, right? A single unit with a small amount of characters so far, so...
Yeah, I can imagine a few different versions of this idea. And like, yeah, there's probably a Hunger Games type one where you're on the outside and like ahead of the unit era of life. So I think it's interesting to actually take the idea of like, oh no, like this is, we've kind of reached the point of, I don't know if this is really true, but to say like maximum oppression, at least with the idea that we have, like we're starting from there. We're starting from being really deep within it. So
yeah, we have skipped over a few things, like how something like this would even come to be, which maybe is skipped over intentionally because it's kind of like, I don't know if people would agree so readily for this, or if it would be voted in so easily. But I mean, yeah, thought experiment, dystopian novel, they can kind of say what they want to say with this situation they're creating. So
I think we in a way, yeah, we have to take it for granted that like the situation is set up for what it is. I of course like find myself asking that question though of like, oh, but like how would this ever happen? Like who would ever think for this to be? And you kind of get the sense from the main character that, it was a development over a long period of time, right? Like it wasn't just like one day someone had this crazy idea to sequester the older part of the population and do this, right? That there was kind of a longer conversation, but I feel like we missed what is the problem this was trying to solve. Like it's implied a little bit, right? Like, oh, people need organs, and like we have trouble getting like experimental results without having a basically forced population to be the test subjects, right? So there's those things, but I wonder how that's ever enough to make a whole policy. Like is there an implied something bigger that was going on in the world that made this feel necessary enough to make it happen,
Right. Yeah, oddly enough, it might tie back a little bit to the book we just read of like what happens like when people get to a certain age and they need care, like who takes care of that situation.
Right.
And also like this, not so much with the last book, but within our present time, like birth rates are down, right? And that's a big talking point about for everybody basically, for no goddamn reason.
Yeah, one thought I was having about this too is like, how is this any cheaper to run than like a normal like universal elder care or like Medicare type situation, right? Like this seems, Elsa says it too. She's like, wow, like the burden on the taxpayer, which I was like, yeah, the burden on the taxpayer, it seems quite large to be running this facility. But then on the other hand, like people's life expectancy in the facility is 6 or 7 years. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, I guess one way to reduce the cost of elder care is to not have elders, right?
Yeah, for sure. It gives a definite like cutoff for old age.
Yeah, and I guess presumably, they're not worried about elders who are not in the facility because they're taking care of themselves, right? So I think there's it's a good chance that there was sort of a burden discussion happening behind the scenes of why they decided to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think Dorrit mentions like if her parents had still been alive and she was caring for them, she would get a few more years before she had to go to the unit. So yeah, familial relationships are like very important in the nuclear sense, I'll say.
Yeah, very much like parent and kid ones. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So it doesn't seem like it's the system that's responsible for taking care of like the general public. It's like families will do this, or you'll end up in the unit,
Mm.
basically.
It almost makes me wonder, like, I don't think we've seen anyone yet who has been like an awkward age for this, like an unusual one. Like, if there are people who stick around a few more years, I imagine like this happens all the time, right? People sticking around a few more years because their parents are still alive, right? And then once the parents die, I assume then they come into the unit system, right? So like we should be having some, like, I don't know, 58-year-old women coming in, not just 50-year-old women, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, sort of a side thought, but yeah, I also think the fact that they're putting so much money into this puts the idea of preventative healthcare at risk, right? Like there's this whole thing of putting organs from dispensable folks into younger people, and it's like, oh, like I wonder what like monetary investment society decided to put into preventative care before deciding they needed to be so reactive about it.
Are you talking about this from the angle of like, there's no guarantee that the organs being used are like in good health because they've been outside of the unit before that?
Oh, not even necessarily that. Just I'm thinking like what there's got to be cases where we have someone who has organ failure, and I don't think we've had an example of this, so I'm really speculating now, but like organ failure that's not related to like a genetic disease or something out of their control, right? Like do those people still get organs, and like is there a preventative healthcare measure to like maybe prevent someone from like picking up type 2 diabetes or like having cirrhosis, something
Right.
that would lead to a failed organ? Like are we really just like focused on this like reactive healthcare system where like something fails and we fix it with someone else's body part? Like there's so much effort into the research, so maybe like I'd like to think so, but yeah, it doesn't get into that, of course. But just be curious about again, like what's the political state where we're like this is better than like investing in preventative healthcare.
Yeah, because the only thing we've seen is the one mother who got a pancreas, I think it was, but she had type 1 diabetes, and they were like, so it's not her fault that she needed this, like,
Right, yeah.
as if to, yeah, make Dorrit feel better.
Yeah, they really justify Miken's death a lot with that. And I almost that made me wonder too, like not every death must be like this though. Like not everyone's organ donation must be because of like type 1 diabetes for a single mother of five. Like it can't be that there's only the extremes of the world, people who have no kids and like are living either like dink or single lives, or like they are with many kids and they're single parents and they're struggling. There's got to be like a middle ground here. Maybe not, but I would think there'd be a middle ground. We just haven't heard about it.
It also depends on if the unit would be honest about that middle ground, right?
True,
Like, this
true.
is so utopian, and obviously there's a lot of secrets, things to keep the people inside docile, I would assume. So, like, this mother of five could be a lie, to be honest.
Totally, totally. Yeah, because how do you ever tell anyone in there about, yeah, like, oh, like yours went to someone who had too many drinks and therefore their liver failed, like whatever it is, like something that's going to cause someone inside the unit to have a judgment on it. That seems dangerous, but yet there seems to be this emphasis in the book that this is a very democratic society and free speech and things like that. So like it makes you wonder, yeah, like what they are and aren't willing to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just hard to trust any type of system which does view certain people as disposable, right?
Totally, totally.
But yeah, getting this perspective of like the life before the unit, I guess, does let us see how society was running before that, at least for Dorrit's family. But I think it's a very familiar opinion, which is basically like you do not want to be dependent on a man.
Mhm.
Like if you enter a relationship with him or a marriage with him, you don't want to only be relying on his money. You want to be able to, have your own money, leave whenever you want, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be trapped in that kind of situation, which is still something that we talk about today, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I think this book has a particularly interesting focus on a society where I don't know, I guess elements of equality that we talk about but haven't put into policy are in policy in this book, right? Like being able to call out someone for like harassment and like have actual legal action take place in response is probably a dream for many, right? Like this is real in this book. I think this is an interesting addition given everything else that's happening, to be like, yeah, like we maybe don't have like age equality, but we have gender equality, because like that's the argument, and it's still really not all the way there, right? Like there's the whole like age gap of men are out in the world longer before they end up in the unit, things like that, right? Like so it's not really equal, but there's a lot of language around it being equal.
Yeah. I can see what you mean. I think it does try to set itself up that way with like how when you have a child, you're given like equal time off to take care of it, that kind of stuff. There is that kind of stuff in place, but I think more so what's happened maybe is just a shift in power in that before women were the ones worried about being trapped within a relationship. But because of the unit and that whole system, the power has shifted so that women basically have more power in the relationship. Like there is the stuff about having men arrested for like harassment and for cheating. And there's this idea of men feeling like they're being used for their sperm so that women can get pregnant. And just because she gets pregnant doesn't mean both of you are going to be safe from the unit, right? Like
Right.
she can leave and you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, I see that. How the other issue with that though is it still kind of puts women in it's still unequal, right? Because it's like focusing on women, and this is the whole issue with the system, right? It's focusing on women as mothers or as child bearers at the very least, right? Of saying like this, you have the power if you are willing to use childbearing as a power, but that's not inherent, and like it pushes women into a certain direction as a result. So I think like it still kind of puts the burden on them too, even though they have the power. It puts the burden on them to make those decisions and decide. It's like decide doesn't even feel like the right word, but like figure out how or if they're going to get pregnant so that way they can avoid the unit themselves. So like, yeah, on the one hand, I get the concern of men in this book being like, oh, like all I am is sperm now. But I'm like, I don't really know if it's totally flipped on its head the way that they think it has.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not even a new argument about men feeling like they're getting baby trapped, right? Like men complain about that now and they're annoying as hell for it.
Yeah.
It's the illusion of choice, right? Like that's the only path you're allowed to take. So it's not actually making a decision.
Yeah. I think maybe the hoped intention of this was that it would make men shape up a bit, right? Like that they'd be better partners so that way they'd be more likely to stick around. And I just don't think that is the realistic response, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, we still see men cheating.
Yeah.
Because we have Dorrit sleeping with a married man.
The most wild thought, well, that's a good point, because the fact that they can get arrested for things like that, I'm like, if Dorrit really wanted to exact some revenge on Nils not sticking by her, she totally could have. But I was also like thinking that Nils really, this is maybe a crazy thought, Nils could have probably done her a solid by like getting her pregnant, frankly, right? Because she was considering like ending her own life before she got taken to the unit, and she was just like hoping that she would get pregnant instead. Nils is like far too like guilty of someone who is cheating to ever think of doing something like that. But I was like, in a world where like the situation is this wild, it's something I could see happening.
Right. Yeah, because it's like, what if something like that happens? A woman just ends up pregnant. Do they test to see who the father is, or do they just let it go?
I doubt it. I mean, the sense I get here is that there's single women all over the place if this is a thing that's really happening. I also have some suspicions about how much this is actually happening, because I do think men like to cry baby a lot, right? But assuming it is happening, yeah, I doubt anyone cares, right? I think all they care is that there are women having children, so that way the world continues.
Right. Because Dora emphasizes that he should marry her, and that's how he'll save her.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, I think this is part of her own fantasies about having like a kind of trad wife experience that are playing into this a little bit. But like, yeah, if she really did want to be saved, getting pregnant is the answer here, right?
Yeah, and I do wonder how many people are dodging it like that too. Like I would almost expect that the only women who end up in the unit are the ones who are really averse to pregnancy or who can't be pregnant for a reason or another, right? Like I would think that would be the biggest proportion of women in there.
Yeah. I mean, there is the other factor of Dorrit, at least, and I'm assuming other people as well, are poor, right? Like they don't have a stable job or a stable income. So I wonder like what the situation is if you do end up having a kid, but you can't financially support them.
Well, yeah, this is like a whole other thing I was wondering about, because again, we spend all this money on this unit system. What are we doing for the people who are like in the world, though, right? Like, yeah, what are we doing for single mother of 5 with type 1 diabetes to make sure that she can actually sustain that life, you know? I, it's a good question of like, yeah, what does the support look like? I also like, this is getting ahead a little bit, but I was wondering, what about the gays, right? Like, they mentioned that there are gays in this book. They seem totally normal and integrated into society. Like, is adoption for gays still a thing? Is adoption a thing at all? Like, who would want to give anyone up for adoption in a world where you need to be needed? But then, like, there's do people still need to be adopted if they can't handle, like, financially having another body, right? So I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'd assume in like extreme cases of like abuse and stuff, those types of people would not be allowed to have children. So it's like, are those types of people ending up in the unit? Because so far, everybody we've seen has been a chill artist, and that's like it.
Right.
And then, yeah, if queer couples are using like surrogates, who's doing that? I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess people would still do that. It just feels like it would be less common, right? Because people would be they'd want to have more kids of their own. And I almost wonder if the like larger families thing is like contingency plan, right? Like, I'm going to have several kids. So that way the likelihood that they make it into full adulthood and like there's like a need relationship here, is more likely.
Right. It feels very medieval, doesn't it? Like having a lot of kids because some of them are going to die young.
Right.
But in this, it's like, I mean, yeah, maybe they'll die young, but also anything could happen. Like if you have one kid and then he gets into an accident, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you could have put as much effort into raising children as anyone else and still end up in the unit because of luck, happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's not about like, were you needed? It's about, are you needed?
That's like such forward planning. I mean, this is the whole thing, right? Like trying to maintain like progress, right? Feeding into progress and all of that. But you can't like predict progress. I don't know. There's no perfect like 10-year plan. It's all going to fall apart.
It can always, yeah, exactly. I think there must be kid pacts in the way that we like pop culturally heard about marriage pacts, right? Like, oh, if we're not married by 40, like there's got to be like, oh, if we don't have a kid by like 35, like let's just have one together.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Feels smart, in my opinion.
I feel like the only reason Dorrit hasn't done that is because we see through her perspective quite clearly that she has like no friends, right? So it might be the case that the people going into the unit are really the most isolated from society.
Yeah, totally. Even though they all seem friendly though, right? Like they show up and they all gel. And I guess they talk about this of like, oh, like because you're all kind of on the fringes of society, you're more likely to gel with each other, and you just like maybe didn't have the opportunity for that in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like it's not like, yeah, and no one seems so especially off-putting. I guess there's the recent one. She was like Vivi or something like that. I forget her name exactly. I think it's Vivi. Where she's kind of maybe like introverted, so that may explain like, oh, she's not like typically socializing, and therefore she maybe didn't end up in a relationship. Outside of her, I'm like, everyone else here seems fine. Seems like they would have been okay.
The unit has just made a very unemotional, I guess, society, right? Where if you're not falling in line and producing a nuclear family or working a job that's considered progressive, then you are shunned.
Yeah, I bet you people get ahead of it and are like, oh, you're going to end up dispensable.
Yeah, I could see that happening. And then that makes it more difficult for something like a kid pact to happen, right? Because I'm assuming most, if not all, relationships are completely transactional. It's like we're doing this maybe because we love each other, but mostly because we don't want to end up in the unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we want to give back to society if they're delusional enough, I guess. But then if you have people who are introverted or just don't have a lot of friends, and if you try to change that behavior to become a part of society, then I'm sure the mentality is you're doing it so you don't end up in the unit, right? Like you don't mean any of this. So like, it's like once you're alone, you're alone.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the unit comes in at the end and is like, you're going to belong here and we're going to take care of you. And this is like your place. And it's like, okay, but the reason I don't belong in society is because of you.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's targeting too, like just anyone who would have chosen to live their life alone, right? Or like who just prefers that or doesn't want a relationship with someone. Like that's not a thing that's important to them too. So
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I'm ending up in the unit. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I wonder how they would feel about like this is a random question, but not really. They care a lot about nuclear families, so I wonder how they would feel about like a commune setup, right? Or like there's like a bunch of adults raising a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier with like the surrogacy thing. Like, how many parents is too many parents, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
because, like, yeah, we're kind of gay in this book, but like, how gay are we? You know?
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. There's I guess even thinking within the lens of this book, right? Like we see a like an uncle niece relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Johannes and his niece, presumably who we've heard about. Like that is not enough, right? Is there a point where like uncles and aunts are close enough? Like if they live in house or something, is that enough?
I mean, yeah, sibling relationships are deemed not enough, so I would assume niece-nephew type relationships are also deemed as not enough. Because you're not seen as, like, necessary to that
Yeah, maybe that's
person's
what it
life.
is, right? Yeah, you're not necessary. Like that kid could be raised with just the parents that they have.
Which is obviously bullshit.
Yeah.
But talking about need, I guess, and what is enough to fulfill your role in society, I guess the big question of this book is, what is the meaning or what is the purpose of one's life?
Yeah, I would almost say the value of one's life, the way they talk about it.
Yeah. Dorrit, pretty early on, talks about your life not belonging to yourself. You kind of belong to society, to capital, to whoever is in power. She doesn't even know, right? But it's just like this force above her. But she's also thinking that way because if she doesn't think that way, then she will lose her mind.
Yeah, there's like an interesting thing happening here of living in a capitalist society, but kind of understanding that doesn't mean that there's not kind of this shared aspect to it, right? Like I think we think of sharing and like yeah, the spreading of resources, etc. Like we think of that more in the communism line of thinking, but in this book it's still super relevant because there is an expectation of society, and I think this is true in the society we live in, right? Like there's an expectation that you're going to have a job and work a certain number of hours a week, and that you are going to give your cut effectively to society. This is just another version of that, really.
Yeah, we have it like mentality wise, we think about it a lot less in America. I'd say we're pretty like individualistic for the most part, but like that idea of community coming first, I feel like definitely is what this society is going for. It's just kind of yeah, taking it to an extreme where where you're literally giving like your body and your life to this society.
Yeah, and I think the word society here is interesting though, because effectively these folks have been rejected from society, right? Like there is a two-class system here of the needed and the dispensable, and so it's a bit non-traditional in that, like I don't know if it maps perfectly to like who is disenfranchised in our current real world, but it still kind of creates this divide of like, yeah, some people are society and other people's aren't. Other people's lives aren't society, and so we're going to use those lives to make society continue on.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of like the mentality of if you're not going to give anything else, the least you could give is, and that is your life, right? Your
Right.
organs, your
Yeah,
life.
at least your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're not super direct on how they value careers in this book too, right? Like they haven't told you like this is what makes up for not having a kid, right? Like but there's clearly like a value proposition being made of like either a kid or you do something quote important. Like what is important in society? What keeps it going? And like that is such a slippery slope, right? Of like thinking of what is needed. You keep all your mechanical engineers, right? You keep all of your scientists, you keep all of your doctors, and then you get rid of all of the things that make you human in society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we've seen so far, I think the people outside the unit have been like nurses, medical
Teachers.
students. Yeah. Teachers, yeah, because they give to society. But yeah, everybody so far that we've seen within this unit Oddly enough, I did bring it up at like the end of the last episode of, is everybody in here gonna be a humanities major and like an artist and shit? And that is basically what we got.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
But yeah, it does condense that idea of value to more so like the physical stuff, right?
Yeah. There's also the idea that being successful in the career you chose isn't enough. Like, you could call at the beginning of a career that you're going to end up in the unit if you don't have a kid, because your career, no matter how good you are at it, is not needed. And like, I'm thinking about with Johannes, right? He's publishing a novel within the past couple of years before he ends up in the unit himself. And so being a successful novelist who is still active in his work is not enough to keep you out.
Right.
Like, especially, I don't know, living in the era of AI where people want to replace human things with AI instead of like boring, mundane things. Like, it's like real, right? Like, we see people really doing it that way of like, everything is just production, and anything that is like artistic and fun and interesting is like not something that humans should be spending their time on. Like, that's like the underlying message of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does make you think two things. How people might be taking advantage of all of the art they're being given in their life and maybe not even realizing, because it seems like people just disappear, but not even realizing that the art they love and the creators behind that art are being taken to the unit and disposed of, basically, right? And also, if the case is that people within the society don't have time for art, they only have time for their job and to raise their children, then it's like, are these people actually happy, right? Like,
right.
What's fulfillment within this society? Is it just raising children? Like, that that's such a miserable existence.
Yeah, it's also like the next thing can happen without ever consideration of why do we exist now? Like, why do we want more to exist if all we care about is more existence and like nothing to be made of that?
Yeah, it's like it is capitalism, right? It's like progress for the sake of progress, but it's like, what does that mean, right? Like, where does that get you? In present times, that gets you a dying planet, right? So it's like,
right.
What are we working towards exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Johannes does talk about the fact that what happens, because Dort asks if like what happens to the art in the unit, basically, and he's like, they archive it. I don't think he knows this for certain, but he says they archive it because he has to believe that like the art they're creating and the lives they're living within this unit aren't just being eradicated from existence, right? Like,
but they're so like, they're cut off from society. Why would he think that? Like, they're meant to be disappeared.
I know. Well, yeah, my thought was, what is the difference in this scenario between censoring and between archiving, right? Like, if nobody can, if the novel they're working on or the art they're painting is never seen by anyone outside of the unit and it's just archived, is that not the same as like erasing that person's existence?
Totally.
Like censoring that person?
It's a tree fell in the wood situation, right? There's
right.
No sound. Like, if no one gets to see it out in the world, sure, the people in the unit get to see it, but then they all die too, right? And they don't get to affect society from their position. So it's almost like it doesn't matter, right? At least from a social perspective.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a thing of, it's interesting that they are this chill about this setup like this quickly, knowing that the books, knowing that Dorrit's early life didn't have this, right? It is awfully normalized, such that I think probably people's perspective on artists is, oh yeah, that person might end up in the unit, so let's just like enjoy them while we have them. As opposed to like a concern about like, oh, like they like are thinking about them disappearing or something. Like, I think there's like an understanding that people end up in the unit, and so like things like that might be limited, and because it's just not high ranked in society, that's okay. And like, I think we see it from the other end too, of when they get into the unit, here and there you get someone who gets kind of upset or panicky about being in there, but for the most part, that no one's really causing a stink about it, right? They're there consoling you and like making you feel better, but everyone has accepted their fate.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Like, do we think people are just bought in? They're like, well, yeah, like this is how it is. This is my role. Like, I'm gonna help society by being a subject and giving my organs and stuff, and that's gonna be my role.
Probably. I think, yeah, the people outside of it are probably not caring because it doesn't involve them.
Exactly, yeah.
And then the people inside, they probably do think it's fine because they're giving back, but also I think because of how they were treated outside of the unit and the fact that a lot of them seem to have struggled financially, they really don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of just coercion, right? Like, these are not willing volunteers.
Yeah, I think the Dispensables greatly a disenfranchised group, and I guess maybe not 100% of people have come into it that way, right? But a great deal of them are, and so they're also the, I don't know, like societally easiest ones to do something like this to, right? Because they've gone through probably the worst of it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I will be curious to see if certain characters rise up a little bit. Like Elsa is obviously the most outspoken one of the group right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see if she continues to be that way, or maybe she gets put on an experiment that causes her behavior to change coincidentally, maybe, you know? Because that is something we should talk about. The fact that, like, yeah, they're donating organs, but they're also being, like, physically and psychologically experimented on.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I didn't even think about the idea that like something could happen as far as her like behavior changing, but that's a good point. I think one thing I'm definitely getting out of our discussion is like any of these points that are being made of like, but it's a democracy and like we care about like these social values is like it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter how much they say they care about that or think they care about that. Like there's an end here that they're trying to reach. So yeah, I think that's possible.
Yeah. I mean, very baseline, simple, like, all of the people within this unit cannot consent to being in this unit. And they cannot consent to the tests they're being put through.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because they cannot consent, the unit is doing something unethical.
Inherently, yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're just, like, forced into such a position that they can't allow themselves to accept the fact that it's unethical.
Yeah, a lot of copium.
Yes. Doris says an interesting thing about, like, how the people in the unit are used as, like, a last resort in regards to, like, helping other people. And she hadn't realized how, like, humane it was in the unit. And it's like, that's copium if I've ever fucking heard it.
It's very much, yeah, like, look at this very shitty situation, but at least they treat us nice. Like, that's not a good, yeah, that's not a good setup.
Yeah.
I will say, like, for the way that the book was described with the blurb and information that I had on it ahead of time, I was expecting more of, like, a thread of resistance or pushback, which I can only assume will happen in the second half of the book more, but I'm shocked that we haven't really gotten there at all yet.
Yeah, I feel like you expect the resistance group in a dystopian, but I mean, yeah, this is a relatively new system, right? So we don't really know how people have organized yet.
Mm. Yeah, one way we can maybe get into resistance kind of depends on how people's lives continue on in the unit. Like we're starting to see the initial organ donations among the friend group, right? And we talked about kind of the importance of Elsa's opinions. Like it's possible like she will be, if she doesn't have the behavior change, she might be early on the chopping block, right? Like she won't last long. And that we've already seen a couple of what I would say are potentially radicalizing experiences for the main character Dora, in that she learns of her sister's death. She experiences Maiken's death, right? And so like I think something like Elsa dying could really just like send her over the edge, right?
Yeah, and I mean, these are set up as choices. For Civ, she chose to have like her final donation because she had lost the woman she loved, which the fact that they allow that as a form of like euthanasia is pretty unethical, because she's obviously not in her right state of mind,
totally,
to make that kind of decision. But I assume they don't care because it benefits them. And then the coincidence of is it Maiken, you said?
I think Maiken.
Okay. The fact that she had her exhibit and then like I don't remember how soon after it was, a couple weeks or yeah, and then suddenly she's also had her final donation. Like, was she given the exhibit because she was
thinking
going to her final?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like, was that just happenstance? Did they just know this mother needed her pancreas and I can't remember the exact situation that happened.
Well, yeah, they did kind of warn us ahead of time that she was going to be giving her final donation soon, and it was kind of said matter of fact in a conversation. So there was warning I would say probably a couple weeks in advance, and that's maybe why she was able to, have her final art presentation exhibit and such before doing so.
Because I got the impression from the first conversation was she was getting her pancreas removed, and so she wouldn't be able to eat foods anymore. But I thought that was because she would have like a feeding tube or something, right? Like,
I see. I definitely interpreted it as she would be dead.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess the question in that situation is how much are they willing to do to keep you alive? Or if you have a surgery that makes you difficult to manage, do they just get rid of you at that point?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking. Is like, okay, if like they take the pancreas out and that's too big of a deal, then they'll go ahead and just remove the other organs too. And they talked about being able to sustain organs with their like stem cell technology if they don't use them right away. Like there's some preservation tools.
Yeah, so did she know, or did she only know about the pancreas, or I guess she suspected she was going to die, but obviously Dorrit didn't know that donation would be her final donation, right?
I was thinking like Mikan just didn't say when it was happening. Like I think it was talked about right after the Civ story. So I was like, oh, this is supposed to parallel that like Civ left without saying anything. Mikan's now leaving without saying anything. And maybe that's because she doesn't want to deal with the grief, and she just wants it to be done and over with and do what she has to do.
Interesting. I mean, I was going to say she's the first one that's left us, but Vanya, I think, also ended up dying.
Yeah, just someone we didn't get to know well, but yeah.
Yeah, so I know people when they go to the unit just disappear. This is drifting a bit from the euthanasia final donation bit, but like when people go to the unit, they disappear for some reason. Like, I don't know why it's not like public knowledge, I guess. Like, why is Civ disappearing such a mystery when she just ended up in the unit? Why can't her family know?
Right.
Yeah, that seems like a trying to quell protest type of decision. But then once you're in the unit, are you allowed to say goodbye, or has everybody in the unit just decided individually that it's not a good idea to say goodbye? And like, why would you decide to do that?
I mean, I guess in a place where they're really living on copium, right? Like they don't want to give other people problems to deal with. And also people are dying probably somewhat frequently, right? So to be mourning and grieving all the time would probably take a lot out of them, right? I think given that they're a bit community oriented and this is the sort of core of their community, it makes sense to me that they would choose on their own not to make a scene out of deaths.
I just feel like it's more harmful in regards to grief if you just disappear.
No, for sure.
But yeah, I can't exactly remember if Mikan knew, or even if Vanya knew, they were going to like their final deaths. Yeah, really.
I really do. I do think Mikan knew. I don't know about Vanya.
Yeah.
Yeah, because also, like, if you know that, like, I bet you there's times people have to get extracted, right? Like, where they refuse to show up. And this is maybe another reason for having those surveillance cameras all over the place, right? It's like they need to be able to track you down so they can meet their goals.
Yeah, I wonder if we will get a scene like that then, of, like, somebody refusing.
It seems like a very natural response, Even if it's not going to do anything, like it's a natural response to be like, no, I don't want to go. They're going to have to take me,
Yeah, I wonder if that'll be Elsa then.
Maybe actually. That's a good point. Yeah, I do think the cameras thing is interesting because there's the point of like, well, they don't want them to kill themselves. Though, like, presumably if they did successfully do that, they would just come and take their organs, right? Like they have the video cameras to see that too. But I was almost expecting that to have more of a political nature to it than it did. I'll be curious if that does come up as like whatever resistance happens from Dorrit or whoever else, like if they are used in a political nature. But right now it really does just seem like making sure that they're tracking their supply effectively.
But yeah, I mean, that might be another reason why we're not seeing more of a resistance here, is because they know they're being watched all the time. And there are microphones. Dorrit does mention that as well. It's like not just visual. There is audio as well.
Yeah.
And I wonder if in a place like this, there is like any doctor-patient confidentiality, right? Because Dorrit does have a therapist, but does that mean anything really?
Right. I didn't even
Other
think
than
about
to
that.
keep her settled.
I would bet no. I feel like they're owned by the state.
Yeah. Well,
On that happy note, do we want to solidify some theories? I think we kind of mentioned some already.
yeah, I don't have much, I'll be honest. So, what are you thinking?
Yeah, for me, I think I probably mentioned this already. I think Elsa is probably going to die. I'm seeing that as the straw that breaks the camel's back for Dorrit, and like puts her into action of like, oh no, actually, I want to get out of here.
Yeah, I think we'll still get some time with her just to see her causing a ruckus and stuff. And she obviously needs to not necessarily get Dorrit to think in the same way, but she needs to implant enough ideas into her head, I feel like, for it to have an effect, other than just like base grief.
Some sort of dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if like them getting 6 or 7 years has something to do with how long it takes for people on average to become dissatisfied.
Is that what they say? 6 or 7 years is what they get?
Yeah, I think it's maybe more up to as opposed to an average, but yeah.
Yeah, if you're consistently experimenting on drugging and then taking organs from somebody, I guess that amount, like, and recovery in between all those things, I guess that amount of time makes sense.
Yeah, and I think too, just because they're doing all these other experiments, so I bet you some people are out early. And I was thinking too about like, man, I wonder if you show up and you're not in a particularly healthy condition, what that means for your expectancy here.
I mean, yeah, this ties back to like the very beginning when we're talking about like preventative health and like how are people living day to day? Like, are they healthy individuals?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if somebody smokes a lot and drinks a lot, what happens to them?
Or even just think of like someone who has some sort of physical disability or something, or any sort of disability is like probably greatly disadvantaged for the unit.
That is a good point. That'd be an interesting perspective to get. Yeah, disabled lifestyle. It obviously puts you outside of society a bit, I'm assuming. That transfers over into this universe. You might not be able to have a nuclear family.
Yeah, or like a job that they super value, like in like they being society, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the society is structured in an ableist way, right? In
For
that
sure.
there's a lot of things about being capable to contribute to society in a certain way, and a somewhat narrow way at that matter, right? So it does not look good in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you want to solidify anything about a resistance group? Do you want to make your bets on if they're gonna gather people or if it's just gonna be Dorrit and Johannes?
I feel like it's too late to bring up an actual group.
Yeah, I agree.
But also Dorrit feels very passive. And she feeds into that kind of passive lifestyle. So I don't know. I don't know if she'd like how much she's willing to push, I guess, to live is the question here.
Yeah, she's not exactly my first guess at someone who would escape.
Mm-hmm.
And like maybe if we see more development with her and Johannes, we'll get that. And maybe there'll be some pressure under their butts, right? Of like, yeah, like if we don't do something now, like we're not going to be able enough to get out of here, right? So there could be something like that. But I think if anything, like I don't think there's going to be a whole group of them. I think the best bet is that Dorrit and Johannes will try to get out together, but it'll probably be because Johannes has the energy for it. Like, I think because he'll be like so reinvigorated by this relationship that he's not going to feel so given into it anymore. And then maybe that'll help Dorrit get the fire under her butt too.
Interesting. Do you think it's wise to play into man saving woman trope here?
I mean, dare I say, Dorrit would like it.
Yeah.
That's my concern. I still am not sure I totally understand the books, if the book is trying to take a particular angle with Dorrit being kind of a traditionalist, right? Or if it's just like she should be free to have the relationship she wants, even if it looks a little bit, trad. But yeah, I could very much see it being that still. Even if the book is not really trying to make a point that things should be traditional, I could still see it being like, well, that's what Dorrit likes. She likes a man with initiative, right? And so like Johannes is going to have initiative and she's going to follow. I think if that's how it happens, it'll very much matter how it's delivered on whether or not I like that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really sure. The only thing we do know is that obviously Dorrit does not necessarily escape, I guess. I guess she just lives, right, for the end of this book because she's writing about everything that's happening from some kind of future, but she could still be in the unit while she's writing that, I presume.
That's true. I though would be shocked if she felt like her story was over to write a book like this if she were still in the unit.
Yeah, because I guess what would the messaging be, right? Like, if from the blurb we know she falls in love and she thinks about escaping, and then we reach the end, she doesn't, and she's like, well, you do what you can. That's kind of like a bummer, right?
Yeah, which I guess honestly, now that you say it, I'm like, no, I think that could actually be it though. Like that could be a whole thing. It's just like, wouldn't she lose the hope of writing? I don't know. She only just got back the interest in writing, right? I could see her losing it if it feels like a dead end.
Well, the only thing I could maybe see is some like the thing Johannes talked about before about art being like saved and archived so that we can like see it in the future basically. And so her writing this is a way to immortalize all of these people that she met in the unit.
Yeah. That's a fair point. Actually, that's a pretty good point because I think my implicit assumption is that this book has to end with her getting out, but I'm not sure if I believe that that's true. Because then it's like, what if she does get out? Like, does the book have a satisfying ending if Dorrit gets out, but the system persists?
Right, because I think she has she has everything in place to form a resistance type of mentality, type of group, right? She has Elsa and she's lost people clearly. And she has this interesting dream about her and her dog just on the beach. And they're not doing anything with like purpose, but it's like the happiest she's ever been. So I think there is sort of like a theme of what makes a life meaningful is just like in the being of it, like just existing and living is like more than enough to have value. But yet it is a question of how, like, are we going to bring that theme to the end? And are we just going to have Dorrit be the one to experience that? Or is she going to try and bring that to the entire society community, right?
Yeah, also though, like, I don't think her life would be just like freedom, because she'd probably be a fugitive.
Maybe like, yeah, like it's just like, it's so new. We don't know what happens when people want to leave, right?
Yeah, she might be the first, probably would be the first to get out.
Yeah, and so like, would the system try and keep the peace? Or like, yeah, would they try to get rid of her? Or
I mean, I think a bit of both. I would think they would both cover it up and try to find her.
right. And I don't think there's like, and it's not like the unit is a global thing happening, right? Like,
Well, I wasn't sure about that because at least other European countries are mentioned, and I don't think those like her siblings were escaping the system. It was unclear what's happening on a global scale. If there's like a way to get out, like we don't know what the government structure is or anything.
yeah, we skipped over the beginning. So like, I was gonna say it seems unlikely that it's a global thing, but if we're having like I don't know, one global government as the basis for this book, then maybe it is a global thing. I don't know.
I almost think it has to. I don't know if this works otherwise, because you just probably have people leaving your country. I don't know, unless things are, I guess, really bad in the rest of the world. That's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like if this is as good as it gets right now, then yeah, I guess people won't be flooding out. But I could just really see people like living until they're like 45 and being like, all right, I'm gonna take a very long vacation for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because then it's like, is avoiding the unit a crime?
And would other countries grant like political asylum to people leaving the country to avoid the unit if it's seen as like a human rights issue?
Yeah, we just don't know enough about the world, I guess. Like,
yeah, I would really like to. I can respect the author's decision to not, but I just really like I think it's a very interesting part that's not being discussed.
Yeah, this might be another more character focused book where like the plot is kind of like hand wavy, you know?
Yeah, that's okay. It's because sometimes two things get over explained, and you're like, you know what? Better if you didn't, right? So maybe I should be careful what I wish for, but I do think there's such an interesting like basis groundwork for this world that I do find myself wanting to know more.
Yeah. So I guess that's everything for now. Very high level discussion, very loosey goosey theories, but that's okay. Dystopian's hard. It can really go anywhere, so And I feel like, yeah, we haven't actually done that much so far in the unit.
Yeah, halfway felt a little short this time, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially because this is parts. So, like, this part 2 might really cover her being in the unit, right? And then...
Right, part 3 can be the entirety of the climax, and resolution is part 3.
Yeah. But, yeah. So next time we'll finish this up, see how it goes. And if you have your own thoughts and theories, all of our socials are in the description.
And please give us 5 stars, like, follow, subscribe, etc. on your podcast app of choice. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.